In this video, we're going to use our graphing calculator to solve a quadratic equation, as well as use our calculator to find the vertex of a quadratic equation or a parabola. Let's first talk about how we can use our calculator to solve a quadratic equation. As you can see, I already took the liberty of writing out all of the different steps that you'll need in order to do this, and we'll just apply them to one example. In this one, we're going to try to find when 2 times x minus 3 squared equals 5. Step 1 is to write the equation so that it's set equal to 0. So I'd have to subtract 5 from both sides, which would then leave me with 2 times x minus 3 squared equals, or excuse me, not equals, but minus 5 equals 0. So we want to make sure it's set equal to 0. Good news is I do not need to write this in standard form. The calculator will recognize this and take care of the work for me. The second thing I'm going to do is enter this function for y1 in my calculator. So y1 will be equal to this quadratic, 2 times x minus 3 quantity squared take away 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to find the zeros of this function. If you remember, when we find the zeros, really we're finding the x value. So we're finding what x value or values make y equal to 0. So we're going to use a feature that essentially is going to say, okay, let's put in a 0 for y and try to solve this equation. And if you think about it, that's exactly what we want to do. That's the equation we're solving in step 1. So let's go about doing this. I'm going to bring up a calculator now. And so what we're going to try to do right now in for y, let's type in the equation. It was 2 times x minus 3 quantity squared subtract 5. Now the key is we need to graph this in a window that's going to show us the intercepts or the zeros. So let's see if we get lucky. Let's go to zoom 6, or you can cursor down if you want to the standard window, and let's see if we get lucky. And it looks like we actually do. We can see the intercepts on this window. We need to find that 0 and that 0. Now the feature we're going to use cannot find both in one shot, unfortunately. We got to find one at a time. So the first one we're going to try to find is this leftmost 0. Now, in a second, you're going to see it's going to ask for the left bound. Let's go ahead and do that. So to get to this feature, we're going to hit second and then the trace button. That should take you to the calculate menu. We're going to choose number 2, 0. We're finding the x values that make y 0. So if we hit enter, it'll take you back to the screen. Now this is where I'm talking about. It's going to ask you for the left bound of your 0. So let's assume that we're going to try to find this 0 here first. The left bound just means you have to select a point, any point that is to the left of that coordinate. So that means if we're on the parabola, we'd have to be somewhere up here. So your job is to use your cursor and try to select any point that's there. Now, I know where I'm at right now based on these coordinates. I know I'm currently at the coordinate 0, 13, which is off of my screen. It's up here somewhere. Remember, the top of my screen is at a y max of 10 only, and this is at 13 for my y coordinate. So it's kind of nice. At the bottom of the screen right here, they're telling you what coordinates you're currently located at. And so what I'm going to do then is hit my right arrow to bring that cursor into the picture, and there you can see I'm flashing, and I'm currently to the left of that first 0 I want to select. So I'm going to hit enter, and it should automatically then ask you for a right bound. Now what that means is if we're finding this 0 once again, to the right of that point is anywhere on this part of the parabola. Now you don't want to pass that second 0 up and go over here, even though you're to the right of that 0. This is going to confuse the calculator because you've passed a second 0 over here. So what we're going to want to do is make sure we only go so far as any point over here to the right of that. So let's select a coordinate that's in that region. I'm going to hit the right arrow to go past it. And now I'm definitely to the right of that 0, so I can hit enter. So let's do it. Once you hit enter, it'll say, okay, guess. That means you have to select any value in between your left and right bound. So I'm just going to put it close to where the 0 is and hit enter for my third time, and it gives me the 0. Notice you have the 0 because the y coordinate's 0. This is the x value that makes it 0. Now this one isn't very nice because it's not a nice integer. That's one of the downsides to using your calculator. It's not going to give you the exact value necessarily, especially if it's some kind of fraction or radical where there's a square root involved. So we're just going to have to round in this case. It's about 1.42, and I'm going to make note of that on the side before we do the next one. Now let's go ahead and use the feature again to find the next 0. Now my next 0 is to the right, so I'm trying to find this 0 now. When it asks me for the left bound, that means I have to be to the left of that coordinate, so I have to be somewhere over here. Once again, I don't want to go here and past the 0 that I've already found. So left bound really, well, for this second 0 is only going to be clicked somewhere down here. So let's do it. I'm going to hit second and trace once again. Let's turn it on. Second and trace once again to get the calculate menu going. And I'm going to choose 0. Now, we're trying to find around here that coordinate. So I'm going to hit the left arrow a couple times. Now I'm definitely to the left of the second 0 that we want to find. I'm going to hit enter. Now, when it asks me for the right bound, we're trying to find this 0, so to the right of that coordinate, it's got to be somewhere up above in that area. So when I do my right bound, I'm going to go up above the 0 and hit enter. And my guess has to be somewhere in between the two, near the 0. So I'm going to hit enter for the third time, and I get about 4.58. That gives me a y value of 0. Therefore, my two zeros rounded are approximately 1.42 and 4.58. And we're done. The calculator has solved this equation. Let's do another example where now we're going to use our calculator to find a max and a min. So in this one, we're going to find the maximum value of this function and the value of x where it occurs. Now, ultimately, that's finding the vertex, right? And keep in mind, since the a value, that leading coefficient, is -1, which is less than 0, I know this opens downward. So just generally speaking, I have a parabola that goes like that. And I want to find that maximum, that's the vertex. And the calculator will do that for me. Now, of course, we could do it by hand, but the point of this is to have our calculators do it, so we're going to follow the steps that I have listed there. We definitely need to graph the function in a window that actually shows us the maximum or the vertex. And then we're going to use the second trace buttons to get to the calculate menu, and then either choose maximum, which is the case here if the graph opens down. This is the maximum value. If we were to get a graph that goes like this, where the a value is positive, and we wanted to find that coordinate, the vertex, we would want to use the minimum feature because that's the lowest point on the graph, or the minimum point. So here we go. Let's see if we can do it. We're going to enter in our calculator for y1, x, or not x squared, but negative x squared minus 7x minus 6. So let's see if we can do it. So, negative x squared minus 7x minus 7x and then minus 6. Let's see if we can get lucky. Let's go zoom, standard window. And we do luck out because I can see the vertex. That is going to be my maximum value. So to get there, I'm going to hit second, trace, and now since that vertex is the highest point, I want to choose the maximum, number 4 in this particular example. So if I do that, the left bound means I have to find the left bound of the vertex. Remember, I don't care about the intercepts in this particular problem. I care about this point. So left bound is somewhere over here. If I want to find the right bound is going to be somewhere over here. So this is going to be my right bound click, and then my left bound click is going to be somewhere on this side of the parabola or the vertex. So let's go ahead and do it. My left bound is somewhere over here. I hit enter. My right bound, I pass the vertex and go to the right of it. I hit enter. And my guess is somewhere in between, similar to how we did for the zeros. And there I have my vertex. The maximum value is the y-coordinate, 6.25. That's the tallest this parabola gets, and it occurs at an x value of negative 3.5. So that's really all we need for this one. Let's do one more example. In this one, we have the engine torque T in foot-pounds of one model of cars given by this function, this quadratic function, where R is the speed of the engine in thousands of revolutions per minute, or RPMs. Find the engine speed that maximizes torque. And what is the maximum torque? So we're going to use this equation, and let's plug that in for y1. The negative 3.75 r squared plus 23.2 r plus 38.8. So let's go ahead and do that in our calculator. For y equals, it's going to be negative 3.75 x squared plus 23.2 x plus 38.8. And let's see what happens if we graph it in the standard window. Let's go to zoom 6, and I don't get the vertex here. So I can see that since this opens down, the vertex is somewhere up high. Let's see if I can adjust the window manually. My y max, let's try 30. And graph. Okay, still not even close. Let's go to 100. There we go. Decent enough. I can see my vertex. So in this case, to get the vertex, when I go to second trace, I have to choose maximum value once again, since it's the highest point, and hit enter. Now, the left bound for this vertex is somewhere to the left of it on this side of the parabola, so I'll hit enter. There is fine. I go past my vertex to the right, hit enter, and then click somewhere in between, and there's my maximum. Now let's identify what's going on here. Remember, y is really telling us this is like my t value, so to speak, right? It's the output. This is the engine torque. So the maximum torque is 74.7, let's say, foot-pounds. And the x value here tells me the engine speed. So this is the engine speed that will take me there, and that's about 3.09 thousands of revolutions per minute. So if I want to change this actually into revolutions per minute, we can move the decimal place over 2 spots, and in essence multiply it by actually 3 spots, right? Multiply it by 1,000. So this is like saying at 3,090 RPMs, or revolutions per minute, that engine speed takes me to this maximum torque value. So kind of a neat application of how we can use our calculator to answer a real-life question. Thanks for watching.